would you do if you saved a life, only to be punished for it? Clara Reynolds, a dedicated nurse, faced this heartbreaking dilemma when she rushed to save a patient, a Vietnam War hero, without waiting for permission. Her actions not only saved his life, but sparked a battle that would change hospital protocols forever. What happens when the system punishes the heroes working within it? In this story of courage, bureaucracy, and redemption, watch as one nurse's choice to act goes from risking her career to rewriting the rules. You won't want to miss how this battle between right and wrong unfolds. Can you imagine an ordinary Tuesday morning transforming into a life-altering moment? At St. Mary's Hospital, that's exactly what happened. Clara Reynolds, a 30-year-old nurse with 6 years of unwavering dedication, was bustling through her routine, her sharp eyes catching every detail. Known for her meticulous adherence to protocol, Clara's heart always placed patients above paperwork. How could it not? As orderlies wheeled in a new transfer patient, her gaze landed on the slight tremble in his hands. Leonard Garrison, 78, wore a faded veteran's cap, its frayed edges whispering stories of better days. A delicate oxygen tube snaked beneath his nose, and his weathered face, etched with deep lines, spoke of a life fully lived. Oh, what stories those lines could tell. His medical chart revealed he'd been transferred for specialized cardiac care after a series of alarming episodes. Clara's heart twinged. This man had fought battles she could only imagine. As she hurried past, clipboard in hand, scrutinizing another patient's medication schedule with her usual precision, a sound pierced the air, the chilling wail of a heart monitor flatlining. She spun around, her breath catching. Leonard's body had gone rigid, his life hanging by a thread. The orderlies stood frozen, their uncertainty palpable. Where were the doctors? Not a single one in sight. Without a second's hesitation, Clara dropped her clipboard, the plastic clattering against the linoleum like a gunshot in the suddenly silent corridor. She rushed to Leonard's side, her hands trembling as she lowered the stretcher guardrail. "Code Blue," she shouted, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. "Get a crash cart now." Her hands found their place on Leonard's chest, fingers interlaced, arms straight, shoulders aligned. She began compressions with mechanical precision, each push a plea for life. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted silently, her rhythm the only thing tethering this stranger to the world. Sweat beaded on her forehead as 90 seconds ticked by. Her arms burned, screaming for relief, but there was no response. "Come on, Leonard," she whispered fiercely. "Fight, you've got to fight." 2 agonizing minutes stretched into eternity, each second a battle against time. Then, a miracle. Leonard's chest heaved on its own. A weak but definite pulse flickered back to life. Clara staggered back, her scrubs clinging to her skin, damp with perspiration, her arms trembling from the relentless exertion. She'd done it. She'd brought him back. But before she could catch her breath, Supervisor Margaret Walters stormed in, her face twisted with bureaucratic fury. "Who authorized you to intervene?" she demanded, her voice slicing through the tense air like a blade. No concern for Leonard, no acknowledgement of the life Clara had just saved, only protocol. "This patient isn't assigned to your ward. You've violated protocol." Clara stood speechless, her chest heaving, as Margaret snatched her ID badge. "You're suspended pending review. Clear out your locker." Suspended for saving a life. Clara's eyes flicked to Leonard, now breathing steadily as the emergency team finally arrived. She gave a slight nod, a silent promise to him, and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the eerily quiet hallway. How could doing the right thing feel so wrong? In the staff break room, Clara sat alone, staring into the untouched coffee, her reflection a ghost in the dark liquid. The suspension notice lay beside her, its words cold and final, effective immediately. An emergency review meeting loomed in an hour. The charge: unauthorized medical intervention outside her assigned responsibilities. Through the glass walls she caught sympathetic glances from colleagues, but most quickly looked away. Hospital politics. Nobody wanted to be next. Her phone buzzed, a text from Nurse Jenkins. "You did the right thing, Clara, but they're terrified of liability. Don't expect management to back you." Clara slipped the phone into her pocket, her heart heavy. 6 years of flawless performance reviews, countless lives touched, and now her career teetered on the edge, all because she refused to let a man die. Was this what it meant to be a nurse? The meeting room was frigid, the air thick with judgment. 5 faces stared at her: the director of nursing, hospital administrator, legal counsel, HR representative, and of course, Supervisor Walters. No allies in sight. "Miss Reynolds," the administrator began, shuffling papers with an air of importance. "You understand why we're here. Your actions this morning represent a serious breach of hospital protocol." Clara's voice was quiet, but unshakable. "I performed CPR on a patient in cardiac arrest. There were no doctors present. The transport staff weren't trained in advanced life support." Walters cut in sharply. "That wasn't your call to make. He wasn't your patient. There's a chain of command." Clara met her gaze, unflinching. "If I'd waited for authorization, Mr. Garrison would be dead right now. Is that what you'd prefer?" Her question hung in the air, daring them to answer. Silence blanketed the room. From the corner of her eye, Clara noticed a man in a dark suit rise from a waiting area chair outside. Had he been listening? He moved swiftly, phone to his ear, his purpose unclear. "This isn't about preferences," the legal counsel said cautiously. "It's about liability and established protocols. When staff act beyond their scope, my scope is saving lives," Clara declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "That's what I was trained for. That's what I swore to do." The administrator sighed, weary. "We'll reconvene after reviewing the security footage. Your suspension stands." Clara's heart sank, but she held her head high. Did they not see the human life at stake? Unbeknownst to the room, the man in the suit was retired, Colonel James Garrison, Leonard's younger brother, and he'd heard every word. In a quiet corner of the hospital lobby, he spoke urgently into his phone. "General, it's Garrison. I need a favor," he said, his voice low and intense. "Someone deserves protection and recognition. How fast can you move?" Meanwhile, Clara stood in the locker room, packing her life's work into a small box. A framed photo from her nursing school graduation, a coffee mug from a grateful patient's family, tokens of a career she'd poured her soul into. How many lives would be lost to rigid protocol? How many split-second decisions would be judged by those who'd never faced them? She didn't regret saving Leonard. She'd do it again, even if it cost her everything. At precisely 11:00 a.m., the sharp click of polished dress shoes on linoleum turned heads in the hospital's administrative wing. A towering figure in full military dress uniform strode forward with purpose. Colonel Michael Harris, a decorated combat veteran and military liaison officer, carried a wooden box under one arm and an envelope with government seals in his hand. His medals gleamed under the fluorescent lights, each one a testament to courage few could fathom. "I need to speak with your hospital director," he told the stunned receptionist, his voice calm but unyielding. Immediately, she fumbled with the phone, wide-eyed. "Sir, may I ask what this is about?" "It's a matter of honor," he replied, standing ramrod straight, cap tucked under his arm, and a nurse named Clara Reynolds. "Honor, in a hospital tangled in bureaucracy." Minutes later, Clara was summoned back to the meeting room. The atmosphere had shifted. Electric, tense. The hospital director herself was there, her usual confidence subdued. And at the table's head sat Colonel Harris, his weathered face a mask of disciplined gravitas. "I understand," he began, his voice commanding without effort, "that Nurse Reynolds has been suspended for saving Leonard Garrison's life. Is that correct?" The director shifted, her fingers nervously adjusting papers. "Colonel, with all due respect, this is an internal matter." Harris pressed on, undeterred. "Leonard Garrison is not just any patient." He opened the wooden box with reverence, revealing a Purple Heart medal, its purple and gold stark against the velvet. Staff Sergeant Leonard Garrison served 3 tours in Vietnam. During his second, he carried 4 wounded men through enemy fire after their helicopter crashed. Shrapnel in his leg, burns on his back. He returned to the wreckage 3 times, refusing evacuation until every man was safe. 2 are now surgeons, one's a congressman. "That's the man you punished Clara for saving." The room fell silent, Walters shrinking in her seat. Harris slid a USB drive across the table. "I've reviewed your security footage. It shows Nurse Reynolds was the only one who acted correctly in a life-or-death moment. She followed emergency protocols to the letter." The director played the footage, and the room watched Clara's swift response. her flawless CPR, the agonizing minutes before help arrived. In the military, Harris said, "We value initiative in the absence of order." Clara's actions embody the highest standards of care and decency. She didn't need to know Leonard's heroism to know his life mattered. The director cleared her throat. "Given this context, Miss Reynolds' suspension is lifted immediately." "Not enough," Harris declared. "She deserves recognition, not just reinstatement. She's what your hospital should stand for." As Harris rose, he shook Clara's hand, his medical service pin glinting. A reminder he'd once been a healer too. "You don't owe me an apology," he told the staff. "You owe her gratitude. Some don't need permission to save lives." 3 days later, Clara stood by Leonard's ICU bed. His eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning. "You're the one," he whispered hoarsely. "My brother told me." Clara adjusted his IV, smiling softly. "Just doing my job, Mr. Garrison." His strong, aged hand gripped hers. "I carried men from burning choppers, through jungles. Never thought someone would save me." Tears glistened in his eyes. Clara squeezed back. "We look out for each other, don't we?" Later, Supervisor Walters approached, her rigid demeanor soft. "Nurse Reynolds, I owe you a public apology." Before the evening shift, she addressed the nurses. "Clara saved a life, and I punished her. I was wrong." She announced the Clara Code Red, empowering nurses to act in emergencies. Applause erupted, Clara's heart swelling. The chief of medicine called her to the director's office, where Harris and James Garrison waited. "Your experience and clarity make you the perfect leader to revise our protocols," the director said, handing her a full. As Clara left, she paused by the ICU window, watching Leonard and James laugh together. Rules could protect, but they could also fail. Courage made the difference. Clara's rounds that evening felt different. Eyes met hers with respect, not judgment. Some things never changed. Her patients were her purpose. The Clara Code Red wasn't just a rule. It was a heartbeat, a reminder of why systems exist, to save lives, not stifle heroes. Leonard, who'd saved others, learned courage flows both ways. Clara's victory wasn't just against bureaucracy. It was for every future patient saved, because she dared to act. In hospital corridors, heroism isn't always loud. It's a nurse who acts when no one else will. Have you seen someone punished for doing right? Share your story. Type 1 if you have. Can you feel the tension in that silent room? It was as if the air itself held its breath. Even Supervisor Walters, once so fierce with her rigid rules, seemed to wilt in her chair, her self-righteous fire fading like morning mist under a rising sun. Colonel Harris, his presence commanding, slid a USB drive across the table with a steady hand. "I've reviewed your security footage," he announced, his voice cutting through the stillness. "It proves Nurse Reynolds was the only one who acted right in a life-or-death moment. She followed every emergency protocol perfectly, exactly as she was trained." The hospital director, her fingers fidgeting, plugged the drive into her laptop. The room watched, hearts pounding, as the screen replayed Clara's heroism, her instant response, her CPR technique, precise as a metronome. Those endless minutes before anyone else showed up. How could they doubt her now? In the military, Harris continued, his tone unwavering. "We live by a creed: initiative in the absence of orders. It's about acting when there's no time to wait for permission. That's what makes a hero." He turned to Clara, his eyes shining with admiration. "Clara, your actions are the gold standard of care and compassion. You didn't need to know Sergeant Garrison's bravery to know his life mattered." The director cleared her throat, her voice shaky. "With this new perspective, Miss Reynolds' suspension is lifted, effective immediately." But Harris wasn't satisfied. "That's not enough," he declared, his voice firm as iron. "Clara deserves recognition, not just a pass. She's the soul of what your hospital should be." The director nodded, her resolve softening. "You're right. We'll overhaul our emergency protocols to prevent this from happening again." Walters sat, eyes glued to her hands, unable to face the room. Had she finally seen the error of her ways? "Sometimes," Harris said, standing tall like a sentinel, "the bravest fight isn't on a battlefield. It's standing up to those who should be your allies." He offered Clara his hand, and as she shook it, she spotted a medical service pin on his uniform, a silent nod that he too had once been a healer. "On behalf of the armed forces and the Garrison family, thank you, Clara," he said, his voice warm with gratitude. As he turned to leave, Harris faced the staff. "Don't apologize to me," he said,
Give Clara the gratitude she's earned. Some heroes don't need orders, just the heart to save lives. 3 days later, Clara stood by Leonard Garrison's ICU bed, her pulse racing, his eyes fluttered open, slowly locking onto her face. A spark of recognition lit his weathered features. "You're the one," he rasped, his voice faint but alive. "My brother told me everything." Clara adjusted his IV with gentle care. "Just doing my job, Mr. Garrison," she said, her smile soft. Leonard's hand, aged yet strong, grasped hers. "I dragged men from burning choppers," he said, his voice trembling. "Carried friends through jungles when they couldn't stand. Never dreamed," his eyes shimmered with tears, "never dreamed someone would save me." Clara squeezed his hand, her own eyes misty. "That's the deal, isn't it? We've got each other's back." That afternoon, Supervisor Walters stood by the nurse's station, her usual stiffness gone, her gaze lowered. "Nurse Reynolds," she said, her voice soft and hesitant, "I owe you an apology. A public one." She motioned to the nurses gathering for the shift change. Clara nodded, her heart in her throat. Walters cleared her throat, drawing every eye. "I need to say this," she proclaimed. "3 days ago Clara Reynolds saved a life and I punished her for it. I was wrong." Her voice cracked with regret. "I'm so sorry." Then, to Clara's amazement, she went further. "Today we're launching the Clara Code Red protocol, empowering any qualified nurse to act in emergencies, without a doctor present." The nurses stood, their applause starting slow, then swelling until it echoed through the hall. Clara's face flushed with unexpected warmth. Had she ever felt so honored? Dr. Morris, the chief of medicine, appeared in the doorway. "Nurse Reynolds," he called over the cheers, "the director needs you." In the director's office, Clara was stunned to find Colonel Harrison James Garrison, with hospital leaders. "Our protocols are flawed," the director admitted, her voice earnest. "Too much hierarchy, not enough focus on patients." She handed Clara a fold. "We want you to lead a committee to fix them. Your courage and clarity make you perfect for this." Clara's heart soared, her leading change. Leaving the office, her ID badge back on her scrubs, Clara paused by the ICU window. Leonard sat up, laughing with his brother James over some old memory. She pondered the fragile line between rules and purpose, how systems meant to help could harm, and the bravery needed to see the difference. As she began her evening rounds, the ICU's usual chaos stilled for a moment. This time, the eyes meeting hers held respect, not judgment. She nodded and turned to her patients. Her true purpose, they were why she was here. Some things stayed constant. Many are trained to save lives, but few dare to act without permission. Clara didn't. Her courage saved a life, rewrote a policy, and reminded a community what truly counts. In a world tangled in red tape, it's easy to forget why rules exist: to protect lives, not block heroes. The Clara Code Red was more than a policy. It was a heartbeat, a call to honor the human behind every regulation. Leonard Garrison, a lifelong savior, learned from Clara that courage flows both ways. Sometimes the battlefield is a hospital hallway, and the enemy is our own fear of breaking rank. Clara's true victory wasn't over bureaucracy. It was for every patient who'd now live, because she dared to redefine permission. Heroism isn't just for battlefields. It's in hospital corridors, in choices that recall why rules were made. Have you seen someone punished for doing what's right? Share your story. You weren't authorized to touch that patient. The supervisor barked as the nurse's hands shook from CPR. He wasn't your responsibility, yet she acted alone. The next day, an officer entered the ICU with a folded American flag and a question that hushed the hospital. Ever seen someone punished for doing the right thing? Type 1 if you have.